Welcome to another episode of the Business Everyday Show. I am your host, Jonathan Wilms, and today in the studio, we have a really fun guest, at least fun for me, because he is a person I've personally worked with on a few different deals, a few different projects. I have sent a bunch of my friends his way, and hopefully those deals have actually consummated into real tangible things, and I am really excited to have this opportunity to talk to my friend Aaron, who is, do I say mortgage broker or mortgage expert or financier professional? Like, Aaron, who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Jonathan, it's great to finally do this. Thanks so much for driving down to Nashville. Yeah, so I am a mortgage lender. I do help people with their mortgage strategies. We have some options as a mortgage broker as well. If somebody works with us and maybe their scenario doesn't fit, we do have some options to be a broker as well. But yeah, I do all things mortgages, help people with real estate investing, buying their first house, buying their second house, and yeah, all things real estate.
We are totally going to get into the nitty gritty of what this looks like. And I know you own some properties. We're going to get there because I would love to ask about those and how those deals work. But on the mortgage broker lending side of things, like, how do you get into that? How did you get into that where you went from being a university student to now where you operate with a ton of different kinds of clients, whether it be an investment property or a personal residence? Like, how did you get into mortgages and the lending of money space?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's not something, even as we were talking about here prior to this show. It's one of those jobs I feel like that you don't ever hear about in high school,
right?
Or in college. I mean, I feel like sometimes you hear about real estate agent or maybe investor if you're lucky. But
such a broad term, yes.
Yeah, and so went to Belmont, graduated with a degree in entrepreneurship. I always knew I was going to do something that just gave me the flexibility and the freedom to travel, and never wanted that, that 9-to-5 type job where you only get 2 weeks of vacation. And so
you wanted the 24/7 job, right?
I mean, pretty much. Yeah. I want the job where I can go to Italy for a summer and, work out of a flat in Florence and not have to worry about somebody telling me when I can and can't work. So,
come on. That's
awesome. So graduated with a degree in entrepreneurship, spent a lot of time just reading different things and researching different things in college, and stumbled upon real estate, and for a while thought maybe I would become a real estate agent. I also felt like I really had no idea what I wanted to do out of college. I feel like graduation just came up so fast. And,
right.
Coming out of college with some student loans, needed to get a job right away, and had been thinking about being a firefighter for a couple years in college. I had met one of my friend's uncles who was a fireman when we graduated high school.
Oh, interesting.
And so I thought about that job. I thought about volunteering, and I graduated college and I got a job with the city of Montgomery, Alabama, a couple months out of college, and was living with a friend when I graduated, got this job, and went down there to become a firefighter. I had no experience, went to their fire academy, their recruit school, and spent 6 months in recruit school and got my EMT license there, became a firefighter.
Whoa.
And spent 3 years in Montgomery, Alabama, working for the fire service down there.
Okay.
And didn't love the city, didn't love where I was living. And so 3 years later, I moved back to Nashville, got a job for Brentwood Fire, worked there for 5 years. And as a fireman, I loved it, but it was very much that thing of, you have to be there when you have to be there.
Right.
And the first apartment I was at, we did 24-hour shifts. And so you worked for a day and then you were off for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
In Brentwood, you worked for 2 days and then you were off for 4 days.
Whoa. 48-hour shifts. Dang.
Yeah. So you go in at 7 a.m. on Monday, if that's when your shift starts, and you're not getting home until, 7 or 8 a.m. on Wednesday. I mean, you're there for
Right.
2 full days. And so just being someone that is entrepreneurial minded and likes being, freedom for me is my biggest value, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Just freedom in money, freedom of time, freedom of, of life essentially. And so I think, as much as I love that job and love the guys I worked with, you work nights and holidays and weekends. And
oh gosh. Yeah.
So,
there's no discrepancy on the day when it comes to emergencies.
And you're not just taking, an afternoon off. When you're there, you're there. And so started thinking more seriously about getting a second job when I moved back up here, and couldn't really do the real estate agent thing because the Nashville real estate market's so hot.
Right.
If you're on shift and somebody needs to go look at a house and you can't get there for 2 days, back in I think that was 2018 or 2019. I mean, the house would have been gone because
Right.
stuff was just moving so fast. And so there was another guy in Brentwood at the time who was a mortgage lender, and started just talking with him about it. And he was doing it on his off days, and saw him doing it a little bit on shift too. I mean, he'd bring his computer and
Oh, gotcha.
set up at the kitchen table and sit there and
Okay.
write loans when we weren't busy. And so just really started thinking about it. I took the class in 2017 is when I took it, got my license in 2018.
Okay.
And yeah, really just got into it because of him. And I've always been more financially minded, I feel like, anyway. I love the numbers. I love
Yep.
analyzing deals, looking at just numbers and how numbers work. And so,
Squeeze the last 1% out of a deal.
yeah. And so that just felt really up my alley. And so started doing it. I worked for all of 2018 and didn't do a single deal. I was still working my job as a
Oh.
fireman, and
Oh, man.
we can go into it more. But yeah, really got my start more in 2019 when I switched companies and was able to do my first deal. And from there, that job allowed me to invest. That allowed me to transition out of the fire service
Gotcha.
and go full time into being a mortgage lender a couple years later.
Before we get into the details of what it actually means to be a mortgage lender, can you tell me about the educational process of is it just an online class that you take? And is that just like one of those things like a real estate agent's like $1,000 and then you just go through that? And then if you pass the state test, then you're just certified, and then you got to find a agency, I guess that would be called, or something like
Yeah,
that?
it's
Okay.
pretty much that. Pretty much. So I did an in-person class. I don't know if they have online classes nowadays,
Okay.
but I think it was a full weekend. I think it was
I gotcha.
all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Yeah, you study for a couple weeks after the class. You go take the test.
Okay.
And once you get your license, yeah, you find a company to sponsor you.
Do they actually teach you about mortgages, or do they just teach you legally what you can and can't do and can't say
Yeah,
so you don't get sued?
that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like almost anything nowadays. I feel like it's all on the job training.
Yeah.
So you take the test and then you have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
I mean, they give you a high level overview of some different loan types. But yeah, I feel like a lot of what you learn is on the job
Mhm.
once you get hired on somewhere.
So once you got a part of your first agency, your first, is that the appropriate word, or
The
is
company.
it just company? So
Yeah.
your first company, how did they teach you about your products, or what did you learn about loans that you didn't know before? What was that consumption of new knowledge around what does 5% mean? Is it FHA or VA,
Yeah.
or what are all these terms and acronyms, and what was that
Yeah.
process like for you?
Man, that's another good question. My first day at this company, so there was another fireman at the time that was on another shift that
Okay.
also got into mortgages the same time
Cool.
as me. So now there's three of us at the fire department that are into mortgages.
People to
And
talk
so-
to, yes, camaraderie.
So through this second guy, I was able to get a job at his company. And I remember I went in there the first day. I dressed up in a suit and a tie, and I walked in there, one of my first days off shift.
Yeah.
Walked in there and had literally no idea what I was going to do. And I remember my manager just came in there, set my computer up. I had a little small, office where my shoulders pretty much
Uh-huh.
touched the walls, and had no idea how to write a loan. I had no idea where to get a loan from. I had no idea how I was going to make money. And she came in and dropped a stack of about 50 pages down on the desk, and it just said Byte manual. And I had no idea what Byte was. Well, I come to find out it's our loan origination software. So she
Oh,
drops this thing
gotcha.
down on my desk, doesn't say more than a couple words, just leaves me to kind of figure it out.
Yep.
And so I'm sitting there on my first day reading through this manual on how to put a loan in the system. Well, I still don't know, how do you pick which loan is best for the consumer? How do you find the consumer?
Right.
I mean, I didn't know any of this stuff. And that's why I really struggled at that company, because there was no training, and I had no idea what to do. And she told me, hey, go to banks and try to figure out maybe if banks are turning down loans, if you can get some. And I did that a little bit, but
Just go to banks.
yeah, just go
So
to banks. I
broad.
mean, there was zero training.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh.
I mean, the good news is I feel like if you get into an industry like that, a lot of times you're self-motivated to go out and figure it out. And so I just spent a ton of time on my off days, and even days at the station, at night, I'd get on the computer and research
Yeah.
loan guidelines and loan products and try to learn as much as I could. And I was listening to Bigger Pockets podcast.
Always a favorite. Bigger pockets.
always.
It's so good.
Yeah. And so I felt like I did have a pretty good base of knowledge just from that,
Mhm.
because I wanted to invest and I wanted to learn about investing. And that's a big part of why I got into mortgages.
Got it.
So yeah, a lot of the knowledge came from just learning and doing my own research.
So is there such a thing as a good mortgage, like a standard good mortgage product, or is it just situation by situation?
So there are some Some standard ones. Yeah. If somebody's maybe
Okay.
buying their first house, there's a couple different options. There's some government loans. There's a state down payment assistance program.
Yeah.
There's conventional loans, which a lot of people have heard about,
Mm-hmm.
where you can maybe come in and just have a down payment of 3 to 5%. So a lot of loans, if it's a conventional loan or a government loan, they're underwritten to the same standards across the country.
Okay.
Once you start getting into more investor type loans,
Right.
those loans can vary a little bit from investor to investor.
Sky's the limit on
Hmm.
how you acquire your financing and getting your down payments and this and
It
that
is.
corporation and this LLC and who knows what else.
Yep. It can get real complicated.
What do you have a preference on which kinds like you work with today? Do you mainly work with residential or do you work with corporate environments or do you do strictly investing at this point? Like, have you found your own niche or you just like all loans are good loans?
Yeah. I mean, really my two main avenues are, you know, residential home buyers and investors.
Okay.
And so, yeah, first time home buyers or people that own a home and they want to move up, sell it, move up to the next one, or yeah, somebody getting into investing. I work with both types and they're both two different
Mm-hmm.
clientele. What's the word? Two very different, like client avatars, I guess you could say.
Okay.
That and two very different. Both clients need different things, but
Mhm.
yeah, I like working with both of them, and I do like working with investors, and I do a lot of stuff around investing. Just hosted a how to invest in real estate webinar last night,
Yeah.
and put together a little super casual like monthly meetup that
Yep.
you know about
And part of that's been
for
awesome.
investors. Yeah, and so I do love helping people with the investing side. It's something I'm super passionate about. It's helped us and just transformed our life in a lot of ways.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, investors are great.
So for those who don't know or haven't gone through the home buying process before, can you like broadly explain like what that process looks like? Because I understand like, and I think most people do understand like, oh, you got to get an agent. But then that's like barely step one because
Mhm.
there's this whole back end that actually makes or breaks the deal, which is the financial side of things. It's not just
Yeah.
do I like it and do the shutters look pretty.
Yeah.
It's is there money? Is there no money? Am I coming with zero? Am I coming with good credit, bad credit, excellent credit? Like there are so many things. And that's more of like your wheelhouse of like, okay, yes, you've stated you have a desire, but now let's get into the details and the practicals. And probably at some point you've also had to tell people like, dude, like I can work with you as much as I can, but this isn't going to work right now. We need to wait a
Yeah.
couple of years.
Yeah.
Can you just like broadly overview what that process is from your side of things on how a person gets their home?
Sure. Yeah. So the first call is usually pretty quick. I just want to get to know somebody,
Yeah.
hey, what are your goals? What are you looking to do? Where are you at right now? From there, we'll fill out a mortgage application. And a lot of times we'll do it over the phone. Sometimes we can, send somebody the application and they can fill it out when they have a
Okay.
chance. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. We need to know your income and your employment history. If you have any money saved up, what your credit looks like,
Yeah.
what your monthly payments look like. So we get all of that information. Typically from there, I'll review it and then I'll give that person a call and kind of go over and say, hey, here's what it looks like just based on our conversation, what you may qualify for.
Right.
The next step from there is for that person to send us pay stubs, W-2s, maybe some tax returns, maybe
Verification of what
some
you said is true.
documents. Yeah, just to verify. Yeah, exactly. Everything that they've told us. And then assuming all that looks good, I mean, this could happen in a span of a couple hours. If somebody calls me in the morning, by that afternoon, if everything looks good, they might be pre-approved.
Okay.
From that point, we'll send them a pre-approval letter. And then if they don't have a real estate agent, we'll connect them with somebody.
Oh, gotcha.
And,
So they could start with you or they could start with an agent.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so it's always great when friends come to me and I can connect them with other, people in my network and connect
Yeah.
them with a good agent and someone that's going to work really well for them.
Awesome.
But yeah, once they get that pre-approval letter, it's on them and their agent to go out and start looking for deals. Those pre-approval letters typically last for about 4 months. And then once they find a house, I mean, it could be that night or it could be 4 months down the road. They
Right.
could go and make an offer and then go under contract and then start that whole process of buying and closing on that house.
Okay. I'm sure you've had to learn a lot of psychological skills or counseling skills to go along with this because when it comes to people and money, my personal experience is like you can have one of two responses. One, people are like super relaxed and open about it, or
Yeah.
two, people are like super shady and like, no, I don't want you to really know what's going on. I kind of make like $100,000 a year, but in reality we make 50, but we
Yeah.
spend 100.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, how have you navigated like the dealing with people aspect of writing loans? Because I'm sure like you've talked about like the numbers, that's interesting, and the data and working out the
Yeah.
best deal, like that's fun. But the people side of things, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, and it is very much having to learn how to deal with different personality types
Yeah.
and different people's styles. It's been a little bit easier with sometimes with people you don't know, maybe because
Mm,
they don't know you, and so I think maybe for some people that's easier for them to work with.
okay.
I
Yeah.
I really, I guess, and I haven't thought about that too much just because I enjoy talking about money. Like I said, I'm a numbers guy,
Yeah.
enjoy investing and talking about money and net worth and what people make. And I think that's a conversation that we should have with more people because I think we grow and learn through it. So I don't personally mind talking about that stuff. So for me, I think it's easy, but
Okay.
I think for some people, yeah, that is maybe a little bit harder. But I think learning those skills of you know, getting people to trust you and building rapport and
Mm-hmm.
telling them, hey, this is a process. And, you know, you might be starting at a point where you're qualified, or you might be starting somewhere where we need to get you qualified and just letting people know up front and say, hey, I'm not judging you. You know,
Yeah.
I'm essentially like a doctor. I'm going to see your finances. I'm going to see maybe where, you're lacking insurance or you're lacking something, or there's a piece
Mm,
of your financial plan missing. Like, let me help you with that
right.
and not just help you with this mortgage, but let me make sure that this mortgage is going to integrate with your overall financial plan and how you want to build wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that, whatever we talk about and whatever strategy we come up with is going to, yeah, fit into that plan.
Okay.
And I think that makes people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
you don't connect with everybody and you lose some deals and you lose some leads, but yeah,
Uh,
for the most part, I think people are open to that
yeah. Have you ever had to tell someone no
all the time.
all the time?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that strictly a financial thing, or is it like working with them as a client, it just become too chaotic and toxic or whatever? Or is it
Good
mainly
question.
around the financial side of things?
Good question. Yeah, there's been a handful of clients, and it's not many. I feel like I can work with a lot of personality
Sure.
types, and I
Yeah.
can I can take a lot before I have to
Don't be scared out
you
there,
know
audience. Like, Aaron will
tell
work
someone we're
with
not a
you.
good fit.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, there's been one or two people where I said, hey, we're probably not going to be a good fit. But
Mm,
here's somebody I can recommend you to that may do a great job for you.
okay.
Um, and what was the question before that?
Like, just like, have you had to fire people or not work with
Tell
them
them that you can't. They don't
because
qualify.
they don't qualify, or it's either a financial side or just a personal interaction side of things?
Mm,
Like, dude, like every time you call, it's a level 10. Like,
yeah,
and this is not a level 10. It's just an inspection. It's totally fine.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Well, like, I was just, what has that experience been like for you, or commonalities, or
Yeah, it's hard for me to tell people no. Again, because since I tell them on the first call, hey, I'm not judging you, I'm here for
yeah.
you. I want to be an advisor with you in this process, and I tell everybody, hey, I've got your back. Like I'm gonna do everything I can to make this work. I can't always approve everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for you. I'm gonna support you. If it's a case where maybe I need to argue something on your behalf to get you to qualify, like I'm gonna do that for you.
Right.
Um, but there are people either for credit issues or for income issues, they just don't make enough to qualify for the house,
Mm-hmm.
that you do have to tell them no, and that is hard for me.
Have you encountered like a number one pitfall that is avoidable for people that are wanting to get into, let's say, their first home?
Pitfall that's avoidable.
Yeah. Like, I've had some conversations with friends. Like, I'm still in, a lot of my friends haven't bought their first home,
Hmm.
and which is exciting and also is kind of
Yeah,
scary. And like, it's just, that's where we're at in the
yeah,
world, and homes gone up in value. And so it's hard to
yeah.
get into homes. Like, that's just the reality of
It
things. Like,
is.
there are so many cool resources available, but it's still a daunting task if you're, still developing that career and stuff like that. But
Mm.
one of the common things that I've seen is like, somebody had a cell phone bill in college that, only had $5 left on it, but they totally forgot about it. And
Mm.
they hadn't done a full credit report in 5 or 6 years, and they didn't even know that it was put in collections. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this stupid $5 bill, it just screwed me over.
Mm.
Or, oh, I didn't realize that having even if it's a $300 limit, having a maxed out credit card is going to just decimate my credit. Like,
Yeah.
just those common things that nobody really thinks about until they're wanting to do something bigger financially.
Mm.
Has there been
Yeah.
anything that you've encountered, like, dude, like, if you just do this one thing, or make sure this is in a good place, it makes it so much easier to process your entire mortgage.
Yeah, I don't know if there's one specific thing. I
Okay.
think generally, I think it's people have too much consumer debt.
Yeah.
And especially nowadays, like you were saying, housing's so expensive. And so
Mm-hmm.
even someone making a good income of, $50,000, I mean, it gets really tight if you have any sort of consumer debt. And so I think people that just aren't focused on their credit and, maybe they're a little bit younger and they're spending money and they're racking up credit card bills.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you have a good score, those credit card bills are still going to affect how much you can qualify for.
Right.
And so that's been a big thing. And it's been a big piece of sometimes people not qualifying for what they want to qualify for.
Right. Right.
And I've actually got a funny story too. If I
tell
can
me
kind
a
of
funny
interject,
story.
and this may go a little bit more towards real estate investing, but you asked if I, have to deny people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first partner I ever had in real estate, I met him at a investors meetup, and he said, "Oh, you're in the Smoky Mountains and you're a real estate investor and you're a lender." He said, "I'd love to buy a property out there. Will you do my loan for me?" And so I took his application, and this guy had a bunch of properties, and just based on the properties he had and what he was showing for cash flow, he made a lot more than he shows on his tax returns.
Okay.
Because of how you can write off some different expenses.
Sure.
Well, long story short, I had to deny this guy a loan and ended up partnering with him since he couldn't qualify for the loan. A couple months later, I think it was, or something, we started talking and he said, "Hey, maybe we could partner up." Well, we ended up finding a property, and then I went out and got the loan on it, and then we just ended up partnering on this deal, and he brought a larger portion of the down payment. So that was pretty funny, and it was cool to even see his problem-solving skills of, hey, I want to get into this market, and I'm not getting approved for a loan, but I'm going to make this work.
Right.
And ended up getting a great partner out of it, and it really helped us scale our real estate investing, which was super cool.
That's so interesting that I actually had a conversation, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, with somebody who's like small business owner who, let's say makes 150, but because of tax write-offs and the way they've set up their corporation and stuff like that, they actually had, a net profit of a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
But for a loan application, because they're looking to get into their first home, they actually have to show the ability to pay their mortgage, and they can't.
Yeah.
And it's such a nuanced thing. It's like, oh, the small business owner is trying to save on taxes, totally in favor for, as long as it's legal. But in the same way, you actually have to show income in order to qualify for a mortgage product. So that's so funny that even it doesn't matter what scale you're at, even if you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, there's a strategy to how you bring in money and how you show that on paper so that the right companies can see it and provide you the services and products that you want.
Exactly.
And that's so funny.
There's always going to be some push and pull between someone's mortgage lender and their CPA.
Right. Now, have you experienced, I mean, since you've been doing this for about 5 years now, that the buyer is a different buyer from when you started? So in 2019, there was a certain type of person who was buying, let's say, a $300,000 house versus 2024. Is that a different buyer in your experience? And how have you stayed up with the current knowledge of the types of people buying homes in your area?
I don't know if I did enough loans. I did my first loan in 2019, I think it was.
Yeah.
Started in 2018, did my first loan in 2019. I did a lot of refinances because rates were coming down. And
that's right.
so it was a lot of people in my network. It was a lot of people that I already knew. And I did do some purchases that year.
Okay.
But I don't know if I did enough to really be able to tell a difference between, helping someone in 2019 versus helping them now. I do work with more investors now. And so, like I said, those people, have different needs and different things that they need in a mortgage. So that is a little bit different. But 2019, 2020, it was a great time to get into mortgages, but
Yes,
it was a lot of refinances.
I was able to get into mine in 2020. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
man, that was a good year. Compared to now, oh my gosh, man.
Yeah.
But then again, you have to also, I was talking with my father not long ago about rates in the 80s, and it's like there were rates almost as high as credit cards are now. And he's just like, I mean, we're freaking out over 5, 6, and 7%, which to be fair is not great.
Yeah.
But it also, you have to think about, are you new to the game or been in the game for a long time to know what is good, bad, or just completely atrocious?
Yeah, I think it's just all a matter of perspective. And I think when you get used to those 2 and 3% rates, I mean, it's hard to see anything else as good, right?
Right.
So yeah, just all a matter of perspective.
How have you, as an advisor to the buying process, because you are looking at the money, you have somebody who's considering a $300,000 house, and they have, I don't know what they would need in regards to income to qualify for something like that on average. I'm guessing probably $70,000 to $80,000, something like that, household income. How have you advised them to be like, hey, you qualify for $475? You probably shouldn't do that. just based upon what I'm seeing of lifestyle and how you're living and your consumer debts and things like that, like, how have you advised people to make smart purchases and not just qualified purchases?
Yeah, that is a good point because sometimes people can't qualify for more than, what they probably should because as a mortgage lender, we look at your gross income. So
Hmm.
that's even before taxes come out.
Right.
So once your taxes come out, obviously you're taking home less than what's being shown on your pay stub. Well, from a,
Hmm.
a mortgage lending standpoint, we're looking at your pre-tax income,
Hmm.
or your gross income. And so the way I do it is through having a systematized process, and it's asking the clients the same questions on every initial phone call, trying to figure out where they're at, what their goals are. And then once we get all the paperwork, we review their application. It's through doing a loan consultation call.
Okay.
And so we'll get on a phone call and, review their goals again, confirm what they are, where they want to be monthly with their mortgage payment,
Yep.
how much they feel like they can afford. And from there, we'll craft a strategy.
Okay.
And I do like to let people know, hey, here's where I'd recommend you stick around,
Mhm.
purchase price wise, if this is your budget. But I do want them to know, hey, you do qualify for, if it's
Right.
a higher amount, maybe $50,000 more, maybe
Mhm.
$100,000 more, just so that they know. And we can also talk about some options around, maybe you get a roommate like I did, or, you house hack, or,
Mm.
maybe you can Airbnb a room and talk about some different strategies
Mhm.
that maybe they could do to bring in some more income. But I always try to craft that plan around what they want, what their goals are, and, what they feel comfortable at.
Yeah. How do you navigate the person who doesn't have any idea what their goals are other than society says I need a house. I need to
Yeah.
buy a house. I'm
Yeah.
21. I just got married. I need a house. Like, how do you deal with that person?
Yeah. Well, first off, I love it. I mean, I think everybody should buy a house as soon as they can.
Totally
It's
agree.
probably the quickest thing that helped me build and scale the wealth that we have today
Yeah.
through buying a house as soon as I could. So first off, I love it, and I try to encourage them to stay positive. But if somebody doesn't have any goals, then my job is to tell them what they qualify for, and make sure that they feel comfortable moving forward, and really just to educate them as best as we can
Yeah.
on the front end of the process so they know what they're getting into. So if somebody comes and they, you know, say that, maybe we do talk about house hacking depending on the person, but
Hmm. Can you define what house hacking is for those who
yeah.
haven't listened to Bigger Pockets and have gotten that verbiage in their vernacular?
Yeah. So house hacking would be buying some sort of property, whether it's just a single family house or maybe it's a multi
Okay.
unit type property, and either renting out the other units
Hmm.
or renting out a room, some sort of um, having some sort of rental income on that property
Okay.
to help pay for the mortgage, whether it's 100% of it or
Hmm.
whether it's 30% of it, just
Okay.
having some extra income coming in through a
Yeah.
roommate or maybe a tenant in another unit.
Just something to offset the overall cost of that to make it more affordable for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, very cool. Awesome. All right, I would love to transition a little more into your business, because you've had this journey of, okay, you started off in the fire space, then
Hmm.
you went completely. I don't even think that's the other direction. It's a different universe. You went into the mortgage lending space, but I want to ask about the kind of business that you are like. So, as a you're not an actual lender. You're a broker. Is that
So
the
I'm a loan officer at a
loan
company. Yep.
officer? Okay. So, as a loan officer, are you a W-2? Are you a 1099? Are you your own business that is contracted out by this host company? Like, how does that all disseminate and work?
Yeah. So I am a W-2 employee, which
Okay.
has pros and cons. The
Yeah.
pros being that we have benefits and
Yep.
health insurance. Cons being we can't write off any of the expenses. And
Right.
so being a commission only employee, there are a lot of expenses I have as I want to give an experience that's elevated versus just your standard mortgage lender. I want people to have a good experience and have a good process. So there are things that I pay for in terms of a CRM and some different things. So I can't write any of that stuff off, which is
Right.
frustrating. Or when I hire a coach, I can't write that expense off.
Oh gosh.
But I am a W-2 employee. I
Okay.
work for a company, but I'm 100% commission.
Interesting. I actually didn't expect that. I actually expected 1099.
Yeah, so that's where we differ from being a real estate agent.
Right.
Is most of the time mortgage lenders are W-2.
Are all mortgage Oh, you said most. So are there some out there that are
There may be. I'm
okay?
not sure. Every company I've worked for a handful of companies since 2018, and every company I've been at, I've been a
Okay.
W-2.
Very interesting. Now, is your income directly attached to the number of loans that you're able to write out, or is it based upon purchase price, or how is it that a person actually makes money in this process?
Yep. So we're commission off of the loan amount.
Okay.
So we get, yeah, basically we get a set percent of whatever the loan amount ends up being. It's not the
Yeah,
purchase price, but it is that loan amount. So we're compensated on our volume
I got you.
of loans that we originate.
Okay. So is there an incentive? I mean, we are in Nashville, and thankfully, most of the average home price in the last 4 or 5 years have gone up just
Yeah,
insanely.
it's crazy.
Sorry for those who haven't bought houses yet. But good for you in regards to commission because that's just, brought up the average. But has that does that play into the factor of what clients you take? Because you bring a client on, it's going to be the same amount of work to do a $100,000 deal
Hmm.
or possibly even more work.
Yeah.
In my experience, has
Yeah.
been sometimes even the smallest business transactions take the most time and most work versus doing a $900,000 deal
Hmm.
and commission one is going to be so much more. Like, how do you balance I know that my commission is going to be so much more with this deal, but there's so many people who have needs in this bracket. Like, how do
Yeah.
you, Aaron, figure out that balance of which clients you take on and what's worth your time?
Yeah. Thankfully it's not a problem I've really had to deal with too much.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm willing to help anybody.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's, ethical or even just, I mean, it doesn't align with my values to turn someone away just because their loan amount is maybe a little bit lower.
Yeah.
So I'll still help that person. Typically there are minimum loan amounts and it's based on the amount of fees versus the loan amount as a
Mhm.
percentage. And so usually once you start getting down under about 100,000, it's hard for lenders
Mhm.
to do those loans because a lot of times they're classified as high cost loans
Right.
because the fees are just such a large percentage of the loan. But I'll work with anybody, and I'm not going to turn someone away just because the loan amount's a little bit low.
Okay. Awesome. You heard it for yourself, people. You can get Aaron. He'll hook you up on any amount.
Let's
Most
go.
any amount.
As long as you're a nice person.
There we go. That's the baseline. Nice person. He's willing to work with you. Have you found that at this point in your business that you have like new loans versus refinances versus home equity line of credits? Like, do you have a percentage of business of like how do those percentages stack up? Like, most of my efforts are put towards new loans. Most of my efforts are put towards refinances. Most of my efforts are put towards home equity lines of credit loans.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was very refinance heavy in 2019,
Yeah.
2020, even 2021.
Everybody's going from 4 and 5% down to 2% to
Yeah,
just
down
bring
to
those.
3 and then down to 2.
Oh
So
my gosh, what a good time.
Yeah, so miss those days. But yeah, as far as what I go after these days, it's a little bit of a mix of both. A lot of my business is based around, my network and the people that I've kind of narrowed down, like the people that I stay in contact with are the people I like working with and I
Yeah.
want to work with again and I'm friends with. And so
Yeah.
a lot of who I stay in touch with is people that I like being around.
Mhm.
And so I stay in touch with my network, I feel like, fairly well, and people that I've done business with before in the past. And at the same time, I still go after new real estate agents as well
Mhm.
because we do get referrals from real estate agents.
Right.
And so I've got some real estate agents that I've been working with for the last couple of years that still send me business.
Okay.
And then, I'm constantly prospecting and constantly going after new business as well.
Yeah.
And even asking, friends and past clients, hey, who's a good real estate agent that that maybe I could reach out to?
Mhm.
And then asking other real estate agents too, hey, who is a good agent in your office that maybe needs a new lender or wants to have a conversation with somebody different?
Mhm.
So yeah, a lot of the past clients that I stay in touch with, turns into more refinance business, or maybe
Yeah.
it's a purchase referral for one of their friends, but
Yep.
I'm still going after, new real estate agents and new relationships as well.
Very cool. From your perspective, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people come and go inside of your business.
Mhm.
And is it as fluid as real estate agents to where like 95% of them don't make it to year 2?
It's a great question. I don't have the data on that answer.
Okay.
I know a lot of loan officers have gotten out over this last year.
Is it because of rates or just
I
because the
think so.
market's harder?
Yeah, I think the market's harder. I think people are having to do more work. I think a lot of real estate agents who had business the last couple of years, I think their volume's down, and so there's not as many deals that they're referring to people. So I know there's a lot of not agents, a lot of loan officers that have gotten out of the business
Right.
lately. But yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's tough, man, and nobody tells you that when you get into it. And thankfully, I had a stable salary job where I was still making income, where I could work for 12 months straight and
Right.
not close a loan. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I'm sure there's probably a lot of dropout in that first year.
Okay.
Once people realize how hard it is.
How long did it take for you to create that steady book of business to where you're like, okay, I can let go of the fire department side of my career and like, okay, it's worth putting all of my time and jumping into this with all of my effort.
So I'm a big scaredy cat in a lot of ways. And
Okay.
one of my it's funny saying this because I am in, real estate as an investor, and I'm also in a
Right.
commission only job, but I have a mindset that just gravitates towards security and stability. And so that was hard, man. It was hard to make that
Mm,
transition for me. I started doing really well in mortgages in 2020.
okay.
So my first 2 years were rough. Like I said, that first year didn't make anything.
Yep.
That second year, I think I did maybe a loan a month or something like that. That third year, I did really, really well.
Okay.
And I kind of had these numbers in my head that said, once I match what I'm making as a fireman,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I'll get out of being a fireman and I'll go into mortgage lending.
Okay.
Well, I got there in 2020. I mean, by the grace of God, it was an awesome year.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, and I don't know how much into the numbers you want to go, but hey, once I
We'll go as deep as you want
once
to go.
I said once I double what I'm making at the fire department, I'll leave and I'll go full time, because that
It's
means
such a hard thing to think. I'm going
I
to double
know.
my income and then cut it by half.
Yeah. Like, hey, if I can make twice as much as a mortgage lender that I'm making as a fireman,
Yeah.
that'll give me some reserves. And even if my business drops, or gets cut in half, I'll still be fine and I'll still be able to make what I was making there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got there in 2022
Okay.
or in 2020 also. And I still couldn't leave. Like, I could
Right.
not pull the trigger. And I said, well, this is great. Now I'm making all this income.
Right.
And I still have a job at the fire department. And then it got a little bit strange with COVID, and a lot of our shifts at the fire department got pretty slow. So
Oh, so you were able to double dip truly into
So
the
for a
I'm able to
while
put
there,
ton of time. Like,
yeah,
why leave it if you can just maintain both?
exactly. Yeah. So we shut down a
Mm,
lot of the extra activities we were doing. We stopped going and doing a lot of the stuff out in public. And for a while, we were pretty confined to the stations other than just running calls. So
right.
that did give us a lot of time outside of, training and different things for me to be able to really grow that business and really build it up. So all that to say, I'm doing really well in mortgages. I'm still at the fire department.
Yeah.
Then I go back to my wife, Natalie, and I said, hey, once we have real estate income that's making the same amount of money as my fire
Uh-huh.
department income, then I'll finally quit that job. And I think she probably just rolled her eyes, but
When does it end?
it was great because we could essentially continue to live off of that income I was making from Brentwood Fire
Right.
and use everything that I was making on the side to funnel into real estate and grow super fast, which was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But we bought our first property in 2020. It was a long-term rental just outside of Clarksville, probably not far from
Oh,
you,
cool.
up in Oak Grove.
Yeah.
And so we bought our first one, and it cash flowed a couple $100 a month.
Okay.
We said, great, we need probably 20 more of these for that income.
Yeah.
To be able to replace my fire department income. And then towards the end of 2020, we started looking at Airbnbs and started looking at the Smoky Mountains and realized that, hey, if we have maybe just 3 or 4 of these Airbnbs,
Mm-hmm.
like that'll cover what I'm making here.
Right.
Or it'll at least cover, and we were still living very frugally and just saving as much as we could, but that'll at least cover, the amount of expenses that we pull from my job as a fireman.
Right.
So
Right.
we bought our first rental in the summer of 2020, bought our second rental in December of 2020, which was an Airbnb in Gatlinburg.
Gotcha.
And that immediately just took off. I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean, that one property over the course of the next year, we didn't know it at the time, but over the course of the next year would replace my fire department income, which was
Holy
phenomenal.
moly, that's incredible.
And so, not knowing that, we very quickly scaled. I met that guy that I told you about. I
Yep.
denied his loan. We went into business with him. We bought another one. From there, we bought 2 more. So by June or July of 2021, we had 4 Airbnbs in the Smokies.
Wow.
And then we had one in Clarksville, that
Yeah.
long-term rental. So finally I said, okay, I've got my mortgage income coming in, still doing really well.
Yep.
We've got all these rentals that are also doing really well. So now I'm going to quit this job. And so finally in 2021,
Once we've 3x'd the income.
yeah, once
then-
we've, like I said, I just I need that security, I feel like, which, we could have another conversation on that. But yeah,
Mhm.
once we got those properties, that for me was kind of the transition point. And so that summer, we were actually on a big road trip out west. We rented an RV and went out west. And I think I called my supervisor from the middle of Yellowstone, or it might have been Glacier, and turned in my 2 weeks. So
Okay.
yeah, I guess that was 3 years after I started mortgages.
Okay.
Was kind of how long it took me to make that transition out.
if you can remember, can you estimate about how many hours you were working doing loans per week or per month while you were still working your full-time job?
I was working a bunch, and I
Okay.
was working. I mean, there was days where I would wake up, I would go on shift. I think I went on shift at 7, if
Okay.
I remember right. So I mean, I would get up at 5 or 5:30, and I'd spend an hour and a half in the mornings getting the loans that I needed to in the process. Then I would go on shift, and I mean, if it was a busy day on shift, I'd be at the kitchen table, after guys would go to bed till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night,
Wow.
sometimes later,
Yeah.
doing loans because the volume was just so good and these refinances are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't really have a good number of hours, but I mean, it was a lot. And I worked a lot. I mean, I worked as much as I could on shift.
Yeah.
And I pretty much worked every day that I was off shift, at least 9 to 5.
Okay.
So it was a lot of hours. And then a lot of weekends I was going to open houses, trying to meet real estate agents.
Right.
At least on Saturday, I was still trying to take Sundays off. But yeah, it was a lot of hours.
Okay. So it's interesting to like the Instagram perception of investment or buying Airbnbs or even starting your own business. It feels so to me dishonest and unclear
Hmm.
to where it's like, yeah, you just quit your thing and then you just buy 12 properties using
Yeah.
other people's money.
Yeah.
And then you just like rank in the dough and they're just going to do amazing well. And you finance this and you do that. And then it's just like, boom, $200,000 passive income
Yeah.
every single month. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, then you buy your Lambo. And then it's like, oh my gosh. And the conversations that I have, even on this show, that has not been the case.
Mm.
It requires a plan. It requires a grind of some sort. And
Yeah.
even a couple of episodes ago, a mutual friend of ours, Logan Ray, real estate agent, it was like we were talking
Mhm.
about like he was still working at his day job at Topgolf while
Mhm.
building up his book of business in real estate. And like, yeah, it required 80, 100 hours a week of
Yeah.
grind just to get to a place where, no, I could survive off of this. I'm
Mhm.
not ready to let go of that, but I could survive off of this. And then eventually take that leap of faith of saying, like, no, I could 2, 3, 4x my business if I gave it the hours that it needed.
Hmm.
And like to me, that like the real story of how people come into the situations that they are is far more effort driven, far more
Hmm.
strategic, and not just throw it out there and it works first time and it's not scary and it just like guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And I love that you have a real story
Hmm.
of purchasing long-term and short-term rentals, and it did accelerate way faster than expected, but it was not a flippant process. You were very, very intentional about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even fast forwarding a couple of years now, we could just talk about, what life looks like today,
Yeah.
because even that first year, I mean, we thought we were doing everything right. I mean, we had hit our financial freedom number.
Mm-hmm.
We're living off these Airbnbs. I transitioned out of the fire service. Now I'm doing mortgages. Well, Airbnbs took a real hard hit
Yeah.
after that. And so even though we analyzed these and we underwrote these properties very conservatively, and a lot of people were coming in there because the revenues during COVID for the Smoky Mountains, I mean, was way up. I don't know what the
Right.
percent is, but I mean, people were analyzing some of these properties thinking as if that revenue was going to last forever.
Yeah.
And so
You got into the market at the top.
we were we were, as it was coming up, it was still coming up. And
Yeah.
so thankfully, I mean, we, still locked in before it really started going up. But,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, even being super conservative in our numbers, once those revenues started coming down, we still took a huge hit. And so the last couple of years we've pivoted and we've sold off some of them, and we just have one of them left,
Okay.
and we've kind of transitioned into some different things. Like we've got a private money loan and a college rental and some other stuff. But yeah, I mean, even for that first 6 months, you
Mm-hmm.
see people on Instagram that do that and they quit their job and now they're financially free,
Yeah.
but they really don't have the experience to be an expert, And so I
Right.
feel like, I mean, because we hadn't even gone through a hard market cycle yet. And so going from that level of income and, just where everything's going well. And then the
Right.
last couple of years, not only has the mortgage market
Mm-hmm.
declined, now our properties are going down in value. They're not going,
Interesting.
they're going down in value, but the rents are coming down
revenues
at
are
a
coming
pretty
down.
high
Yeah, yeah,
rate.
yeah.
And so, yeah, so it's tough, man. And even, sometimes you work super hard and you get there and you hit a hard market cycle or maybe something happens, and I think that's just business. You have to pivot and you have to continue to work super hard,
Mm-hmm.
just to even get by or to survive. And so it has been a hard couple of years, and I don't mind sharing that because
Yeah.
I think that is helpful for people to
Absolutely.
hear.
It's not all sunshine and roses. Like
Yeah,
it's business. It's
yeah,
up and down.
yeah.
And probably a lot of people say it's a lot of down and not as much up.
It feels
But
like a lot of down right now for sure.
what has that process been like to where you've had, okay, I've hit my numbers, I've got this platform of security, and then
Mm,
it's been chipped at and dug away
yeah.
at, and like were you having to even like put money into your Airbnbs because they weren't cash flowing anymore? Like
Mm.
what has that been to pivot into like, how are we gonna do this, and that not be a or I'm presuming not that being a catastrophic like life crisis of like, oh, I'm a failure, I don't know how to do this. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it has been part of the process, but how have you come out of that into, no, I just need to learn and pivot and go into something else. It's
Mm.
not that I did wrong.
Yeah.
It's not that it was wrong.
Yeah.
It's just that's the market has shifted, and so I'm going to
Mm.
navigate according to the market.
Yeah. It's a hard question, man. It took me a lot longer, I think, to get to a point. I think I'm just kind of coming to that point of
Okay.
within the last few months of just realizing that, you know, we probably should have pivoted faster.
Mm,
And at the same time, I mean, it does make you feel like a failure, I think, in a lot of ways. I think that's something I struggle with almost daily.
yeah.
When you get up and you're doing the things, excuse me, and you're working hard, as far as the mortgage lending side, you're making the phone calls,
Yep.
you're going on the meetings, you're analyzing real estate deals, you're managing your properties as best as you can. And for me, like, growth is just such a huge motivator. And I get I think I get a lot of satisfaction and a lot of purpose from growth.
Yeah.
And so going
I'm the
from,
same.
yeah, I know. That's awesome. I totally get that. And so going from where we were to like having that, just having all that success really fast, and then, and working really hard for it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But then, now waking up every morning and it's like, I mean, it's a grind,
Yeah.
like going back to that grind. I mean, it's tough. And so
Mm-hmm.
I guess just over the last couple of months, I mean, it's just, I don't want to say this, like it's teaching me, I think, to become the person that I want to become, because I think
Mm.
if you don't go through these hard times, like it just, you're not going to grow, I think, is kind of what I'm coming
Mm-hmm.
to a little bit. And so becoming a better business person, becoming just a better person in general
Yeah.
through this time and through this stress, because it's been a lot of stress. And there was months where we were putting money into these things,
Oh
just
gosh.
to keep them afloat. I mean, we had a pretty prolonged period where all the Airbnbs were losing money,
Mm.
and we had a HELOC on the house that we had also used to buy some of these.
Right. Rates went
And
up.
so the rates went from like
Ugh,
3.25 to probably 10.5 on our line of credit. So
that's a huge chunk.
yeah. So now our properties are losing money.
I felt
and
that too. Yeah.
I know, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's not your
think I did
fault.
that HELOC for you.
You did.
But I'm there with you.
But no, it was the best thing for me at that situation because of what was going on in my life, and I was bringing
Yeah.
a family in, and there was $50,000 worth of expenses,
Yeah.
and it was needed.
Yeah.
It does cost 3 times more now than it did,
Yeah.
but it was needed. Like that's just what the decision was made, and then
Mhm.
we grit and we grind and we continue on. It's not
Right.
a bad thing.
Make
It's
the
just
best decision you can with the info
exactly.
you've got. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we're finally realizing that we need to pivot, and we had to transition some different property managers, and
Mhm.
like I said, we sold some of the Airbnbs, went back towards the long-term rentals just
Okay.
to kind of get our portfolio a little bit more
Got
stable
it.
and a little bit safer, or I guess a little bit more predictable in terms of the income we were going to get
Yeah.
monthly. So that's helped us a lot.
What is your perspective now, having some both highs and lows with temporary rentals? Like, what are your just like 30,000 foot view thoughts on? Is it a good idea? Is there money still to be made in it, and is it as foolproof as the internet says it is?
Oh man, I don't think it's as foolproof for sure.
Okay.
Man, I'm sure there are markets where you can probably make money. I think it's really hard. I mean, if you just look at price points and what some of these cabins in the Smoky Mountains are going to rent for, I mean, that's where we're at. It's the market I know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just, I mean, it's just not as easy as it was, right? We
Mhm.
didn't do any sort of off market. We bought one of our properties off market, but it was because an agent brought it to us out there.
Okay.
Everything else, I mean, you could go on Zillow, you could look at a property, you could run the numbers. I could do all this from, the front of a fire truck, and I
Yeah.
could, essentially just know that this property was going to cash flow based on what, the rents were doing, and the rates were super low.
Yep.
I don't think, it's as easy to find properties if you're not going off market these days with just where the prices are, where the rates are at.
Mhm.
But I'm sure there probably are some markets. I think you just have to go for markets that aren't as competitive.
Yeah.
as the Smoky Mountains. I think people talk about markets that are more up and coming. I'm sure there's money to be made there. I
Yep.
don't personally, have any experience with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other side of the Airbnb game is it does take more work, and people talk about that. And it was something that I always told Natalie, hey, I want to get into real estate investing, but I don't want to be a landlord, or
Right.
I don't want to be a property manager. Sorry.
Right. I don't want to be taking the calls at 11 p.m. I don't want to be checking
Yeah,
people in. I don't want to be cleaning it. I don't. Yeah.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
I was a little bit, I think, dishonest with myself when we got into it, but I was also really wanting to get out of that job as a fireman.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, hey, even if I'm working a little bit more at home to manage a couple of Airbnbs, that'll be better than, having to be on shift on a holiday or on a weekend night or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And so I did that for probably 2 years. I think I managed all of our Airbnbs, and then we slowly
Wow.
sold them. And
Self-managed properties for 4 hours away or 3 hours away, whatever
yep,
it is.
yep, yep. And had some help. Had a virtual assistant helping with a lot of
Okay.
the messaging and stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
and trained her up. But yeah, like once it got hard and the revenues went down, and we had some issues with Airbnb, and just like, when stuff breaks in a short term rental, I mean, it's got to be fixed immediately, or if
Right.
there's a maintenance issue or a cleaning issue, and you just don't always have time for that. And so, sometimes even on a Saturday morning, man, I'd wake up and it'd be first thing Saturday morning, getting ready for a nice, relaxing weekend, and
Get the call.
pull up the Airbnb. And I actually had my notifications on Airbnb turned off because I had the virtual assistant managing
Okay.
it, which was nice, but I still had to stay on top of her.
Right.
And wake up on a Saturday morning and something's gone wrong,
Oh
man,
gosh.
and it would ruin my whole weekend, dude.
Mm.
Or if it was like a guest complaint, I mean, it would ruin my whole weekend. So just for me, I had to realize that we needed to transition that property to a property manager
Yeah.
that could handle all that stuff, right? Call
Mm-hmm.
the maintenance guy on a Saturday night or a Friday night, because we didn't do any of that stuff for our long-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we knew that going in. We ran the numbers with a 10% property manager fee. We had property managers.
Yep.
But with the Airbnb, we didn't factor any of that stuff in when we bought it. And so that was another piece of why
Right.
our revenue and our profits down this year, is because we, now pay somebody 20% to manage it. The one we have now, we did still buy it, right? And so there is still some spread to be able to pay that. But yeah, it's more work. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
I like the term horizontal income and not passive income.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think
That's a new
people,
one for me.
yeah, people love to like argue that real estate's not passive, but it is horizontal income in terms of you're not necessarily having to trade hours for dollars.
Right.
And so for me, being able to make that as passive as I can through property managers has been super helpful.
I don't think
even
there's
if we have to pay a
anything
little bit
that's
more.
by definition truly passive.
Right.
Because like if you can make money doing absolutely nothing, like it questions its legality.
Yeah, yeah. But I will say we just funded our first private money loan back in May, and that has more or less been almost 100% passive.
That's awesome.
Other than a gentle reminder to, our mortgagee, I think we would call her, or the mortgager, our borrower.
Yeah.
Other than a reminder text, every month, hey, your mortgage is coming due. It's been pretty passive. So that's been nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What just before we leave the Airbnb conversation, I'm interested, like, as a broad stroke, is there a percentage of revenue that you would say is like the safe bar of like it has to at least be making this percentage over expense to even make it something worth looking at?
I've never looked at it that way.
Okay. How have you looked at it?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we've always just been really conservative.
Yeah.
We just, man, now you're making me like think through my thought process on how I haven't thought about this in a couple of years, but I mean, I guess if you look at it, we typically use, a higher than normal number for our repairs and our maintenance and our
Sure.
CapEx. So maybe I think for us, we're probably more conservative than most people, but
Which has
maybe.
probably saved you over the last
Yeah.
couple of years. I mean, even it hurt, but even being like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that just lost everything in the last couple of years because of their optimism of the market and
Yeah.
not facing like non-COVID reality of like, no. The homes don't go up by 25% per year
every year.
every year. Like, that's not normal.
Yeah.
If you got into real estate in 2020, that's just what you've seen for the last 2 or 3 years, but that's not typical. It's that typical 3 to 4% or whatever that percentage is.
Yeah.
And so there's almost a false sense of security because it's like, no, I've been doing this for 3 years and this is the revenue and this is the income and I can do this and it's super cheap and money is cheap. But then there's any sort of downturn, to me, that's the true, like, defining moment for a business.
Yeah.
And I was reading a book even recently that's saying it's like good ideas are not the winning factor of a business. It's perseverance. Like
Mm-hmm.
every idea has already been done, and there might be some new creative invention or something like that. But the majority of us are going to have businesses from products or services that have already been provided or created before. It's only like your perseverance to get past year 1, year 2, year 5, year 10
Yeah.
that creates the difference between a business and just a temporary idea.
Yeah. It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. What has, besides, or maybe I shouldn't say besides money, what caused you to decide to pivot your financial strategy to hold on to the loan lending side of things
Mm.
and then say, okay, the Airbnb needs to transition into something more comfortable, more safe for us and what we feel comfortable with handling on a daily and on a monthly basis, versus giving up the mortgage creation, the mortgage lending side of things, and saying, no, we're just going to go all in on rentals. Like, how have you
Mm.
found that mixture balance to fit your own comfortability or personality? And what went into that decision-making process?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't think that's a decision I really even thought about very
Okay.
much. I think I just always thought I would be in mortgages and I would continue to use that
Yeah.
to buy more real estate. I mean, that was my plan when I got out of the fire service is, hey, I'm going to continue to use this job.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to live off of this income and we're going to use it to buy more real estate.
Right.
So it's not really even a question I had asked myself. I don't think, I mean, the only reason we sold the Airbnbs was because they were losing so much money and our HELOC payment was so much.
That's a good reason.
But I guess I just never even thought that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if I could have spent more time on that, if that would have made it more profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Like when those properties were losing money, I don't know if there was, I'm sure there, someone better than me could have come in and, maybe managed them a little bit better, maybe got their revenues up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just didn't, again, I don't want to be full-time into property management. It's
Right.
just not a goal of mine. The real estate has always been a horizontal income for us. And so I guess when that happened, it just,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm just like, oh crap, now I need to actually make more money in my job to be able to
Right.
support these properties. And so,
I gotcha.
yeah, I just never really thought about getting out of
Okay.
mortgages.
What is your goal or your process towards feeling successful, or like, where are you headed, Aaron? And what are you interested in doing? Because you've talked about, okay, I've tried this investment thing. Now we're trying to create horizontal income. You've mentioned that, like, hey, we want to create freedom in our life to be able to choose. I mean, that to me, that's what money is. Money is
Yeah.
the option for choices. And like, will you have arrived at some point? Like, is there an arrival place for you, whether it be number or life situation, or like, what does that look like for you, and what are you working towards?
I don't know if we're ever going to like have fully arrived. I think that's
Yeah.
part of being a driven person is,
Sure.
there's always something next.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of numbers, I mean, once we get back to having $6,000 a month, I think that'll cover the majority of our living expenses.
Okay.
I say $10,000 a month. It's a little bit more of just a general number, but I think once we get to $10,000 a month in horizontal income, that'll cover all of our expenses and give us the freedom to invest and to continue to travel and have some fun stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think, like the next target.
Okay.
I do have a bigger vision of continuing to build the real estate portfolio, and I think ultimately I'd love to own some different businesses because I do like creating and I like building, and I think man, if I could just narrow it down, it would be working with really fun people that I enjoy working with, hanging out with, and we're building something that is helping other people. And so I think, I mean, right now the mortgage does that, the mortgage business.
Yeah.
But I'm always looking for opportunities of, maybe something that I can start on the side, or maybe I can, buy into a business, or maybe I can, buy a business that's going to continue to help our real estate investing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man, it's a little unclear, but I think it's moving in the direction of being a business owner, owning multiple different things that I can run and operate and build really high performance teams. And I do love to travel. So a lot of this centers around being able to travel. My wife's a school teacher. So the last couple of years, we've taken a month or more off in the summer and gone to Italy or gone to Europe or
best place so far. Where have you
rented
gone?
an RV. Oh, we've taken some good trips.
Okay.
One of my personal favorites is Santorini. A couple years ago,
Santorini.
we spent a month in Italy and
Oh
Greece,
man.
and we did a couple days in Santorini.
Okay.
And we've gone back since for my wife's fall break. I think it was last year, but
Dude, that's so awesome.
yeah, so fun, so fun. So I'm highly motivated by the freedom to travel and to be able to work from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, I think where I find a lot of like true wealth and true freedom is being able to do that.
Yeah. I always go like, what's the point? And why am I doing what I'm doing, whether it's trying to create a career or income or something. It's like for me, it always comes down to like I love connecting with people and I love creating stories. I
Yeah.
love having stories to share. Like one of those things that is like high value for Jonathan is like I want to be that person in a retirement home that you don't have to hear the same story
Yeah.
every single day at coffee. I want to be the person that has a new story every single day for the rest of my life.
That's amazing.
And just be able to pull from this huge library of experiences and places and people and fun and cool and scary stories. And like
Yeah.
for me, if I'm able to add to that library and whatever I'm doing, like that's a successful day.
That's awesome.
And that's just been so much fun for me to explore as an adult and now a married person and doing the travel. And it's been fun.
I love that, man. And you're a great storyteller, by the way.
Well, thank
So,
you.
Yeah, I love it. Resonate with all of that.
Much obliged. Do you have? I'm going to bring you back to being a loan officer for a second and say, have you seen what kind of person is required? Like, what kind of personality is required to be successful? And the definition I'm going to just say successful is a livable wage.
Okay.
What kind of person is required to do what you do?
I think you have to be really focused. I think you have to be really organized in a lot of ways. I mean, because for me, I mean, I work remote.
Yeah.
So there's not other people around me to keep me motivated.
Right.
And I think you just have to be able to regulate your emotions and stay fired up and stay positive, man, because it is tough some days. You know, when you get up and you have the same routine and you know you're going to make a bunch of sales calls and you're going to get a bunch of voicemails and you might not talk to many people that day until your wife gets home from work. And you're probably going to get rejected a lot, as you're calling and you're cold calling people or you're trying to build relationships. So I think you have to be really motivated and know why you're doing it. And I think you have to be able to stay really positive and just keep grinding, and keep doing the same things that is going to lead to that success, even when that routine fatigue starts to set in a little bit.
Yeah. How do you emotionally stay connected to your motivation? Like, because we can just say like, oh, I have my vision board. I have my idea. I know what we're going towards, this much per month and this travel experience. But like emotionally connecting with it to say, no, this is going to propel me into action. Like, how do you do that?
Oh man, I do a lot of stuff around like vision and goal setting. I look at my goals every day.
Yep.
So I've got a little flip book that I go through every day. I look at my goals, look at my habits, look at my actions. And every week I'll go to a different coffee shop or the same coffee shop. I'll go over my goals and just kind of review the week and, make sure that I'm moving towards that vision and just making sure that vision is still something I want, because that does change. And I feel like we even saw that with the Airbnb stuff that, you can go really hard after a target, get there, and then maybe it's not what you still want. You might have to pivot even from there. And so I think for me, I have just a lot of habits around looking at goals, reviewing my goals every week, looking at them every day, and really trying to just visualize like the emotions that I'm going to have when I get there. I think for me is huge. It's sitting on the back porch and meditating. And trying to put myself in those scenarios where I've achieved those goals already and just feeling those feelings, making sure it's what I want. And really just trying to feel everything around those goals and where I'm trying to get to be able to stay fired up.
Do you have a recommended, whether it be class, seminar, book, person to listen to, podcast? Like what speaks to you and keeps you in that motivation space and that learning space? And you've talked about, like you mentioned, bigger pockets. Like, yes, that's a total win. But what are the other things that you use to continue that learning and that growing and that mind push towards growth and your goals ultimately?
Yeah, I read a ton of books. I don't know if I have one recommendation, but I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm really into listening to Ed Milet right now. If you've heard of him or listened to him,
I have not. I'll
super successful, business person. Also a believer and just a great role model to be able to listen to and look up to. So I listen to a ton of him. Listening to music helps. Working out helps, I feel like.
Yeah.
And just hanging out with people that are doing the same things, or maybe a couple steps ahead, has also helped me a lot. Just surrounding yourself with the right people that are going to encourage you, motivate you. Having conversations like this where you're thinking bigger and you're like getting a dream and talk about where you want to go is super helpful too.
Okay. How has faith played a role in your business? Because if that's a part of you and who you are and who your family is, like how does that influence come into your business and your conversations and how you deal with people and integrity and like not trying to shave off this corner to make another dollar? Like how does faith interact with this entrepreneurship business growth mindset of passive income and the ability to travel and give and do, and like how does faith and business collide for you?
For I think the longest time, I don't think I really thought about it too much. I think a lot of my faith just comes out in how you treat people, how you interact with people. I mean, I guess I never even thought that like your integrity comes first in business. I mean, it just does. And so I think just having been raised that way and having grown up that way, like, I don't think I ever had to like put that into writing as a, core value or something. It's just how I operated.
I have to be of integrity. I have to trust. Like, okay.
But yeah, I think as far as like my faith growing over the last couple of years when it's been really tough, I have had to trust God to provide for us, between me and you. And that I think has really grown my faith in a lot of ways, because when times are good and money's just coming in, like you're not, you can say you trust God, but like until the money stops coming in, I feel like you really don't know if, for me personally, it's hard for me to know if I'm really trusting God until I really need God to come through and provide.
Right.
And so I think, again, going back to the hard times and how it's been a struggle and how it's grown me, I think in a lot of ways now it's helping me in my faith, and it's helping me wake up with purpose and really being able to give whatever happens that day to the Lord and say, hey, this is what we need. This is what I think I need. This is how much money I think we need, to survive this month. And I'm going to trust you to provide, and I'm going to try to give you the glory in my conversations today and my sales calls today and my loan call, and everything I do, I'm going to try to bring the glory back to you. And I have I have no other choice but to trust you to provide. Right. And so that's how it's come out a lot lately over the last couple months. Okay. And again, it took a lot of going through this hard time to get there, but that's what it's taught me over the last couple months.
Yeah. It's a different relationship with reality, or the hard times are what make us actually go back and question why we believe what we believe, and how does it manifest in a practical way, not just in an ethereal way, but like truly, like, do I believe this? Do I trust that this is true? Do I believe that God cares for me and wants good things for me? And do I believe those things? Yeah. Or is it just some fairy tale concept out there? And when taken through those hard financial moments, personal moments, emotional moments, whatever, can really bring out those answers in a really cool way, or a hard way, or at least bring different questions to the table that we never had to deal with before.
For sure. Yeah, it definitely does. And it definitely causes you, I guess, to ask questions that maybe you never even thought about asking.
Yeah.
So it's been tough, but it's been good.
Financially, with the faith component, how has your relationship been with giving or tithing as your business has grown, or as you just as an individual person working at the fire department, working way up? Like, is there a relationship between giving and tithing and your business and your career? Yeah,
there's not as much as I'd like there to be right now. And I think that's because times have gotten a little bit lean. And so, we have cut back on our giving a little bit. I grew up just, tithing 10% of your income. So it's a lot of that's ingrained in me.
Yep.
But we've even, cut that back as like things got a little bit leaner. Sure. And so I'd love to get back to where we're doing that, because I've always had these big goals to be able to, you talk to someone that maybe needs a car and then, you go buy them a car and you come back and give them a car. But I think I've realized too that like, if I'm not just giving outside of our tithing right now, that's never going to happen. Even as you make more, it's not going to happen if you're not doing it. And so I think I've been convicted of that lately, but, again, not feeling like we have a whole lot of extra right now. It has made it harder to do that. So it's something I'd like to focus on a little bit more.
Yeah. I just read a really awesome book. It's his latest book by Pastor Craig Rochelle.
Okay.
And he and his church are the one who developed the YouVersion Bible app. And he just wrote a book about decision making, and he talks about 7 or 8 principles of decision making. And one of the things he says a Christian is one of the decisions they can make is just like, I am a giver.
Hmm.
And so at whatever scale I am at, wherever I am situational, like just as a principle, I am a giver. And
Hmm.
so like that could manifest in a $5 way, or paying for someone's lunch, or taking time to meet with this person for coffee, or like,
Yeah.
but it's not a, I'm waiting until I reach a certain point and then I will become. It's just, no, I am. And so therefore I do. Yes, it will manifest in different ways depending on my scale and my income and my availability of time. But really honing into the principles, and he talked about the principles of scripture and the biblical man. But it's interesting to like try on that experience of, no, what does it mean if I just am something? And where
Yeah.
do I do that today?
I love that. That's huge. I mean, that identity piece, I feel like, is what really gets us to change a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times. So that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. As we're coming to the end of the runway here, I am very interested to know, like, is there a good, bad, or ugly story? The drama. That's what sells, right? Like in the loan officer space, or even in the Airbnb space. Like, have you had just the craziest experience with a renter or a person who's wanted to get a mortgage and they've just gone insane or crazy, or they wanted it for whatever reason? Like, do you have any story you could share with us about one of those wild experiences?
Oh man, I'm gonna knock on some wood. I don't have too many crazy stories about borrowers,
Okay.
but you definitely run into some over the top guests as an Airbnb host, which again is another reason that I have transitioned my role out of property management.
Right.
But man, yeah, now I'm trying to think of some. I mean, you just get dumb stuff, man. You get the college kids. Oh, here's a good one. We had a group, and we used to not rent to. I think it was under 25 was our policy.
Okay.
And these kids ended up booking. They messaged us, hey, we're a week out from staying, and all of us are under 25. And we're like, okay, just we say that
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have parties. Just be a good guest. And these kids show up, and the first thing we hear is that the TV's crooked. Well, we send our maintenance crew out, and the maintenance crew grabs the TV because it's on a swivel mount,
Right.
and just tweaks it a little bit. Just adjust it and makes it straight. She's
Okay.
like, okay, the TV's straight. So we're like, all right, well, that's kind of annoying. And then we get a text after the maintenance crew leaves that says, hey, the fridge isn't working. So we're like, dang it. And this is one of those things you're thinking it's a weekend, and now you're like, man, I got to figure out this fridge thing, and
Yep.
it's going to cost me money. I'm going to have to go buy a new fridge and then schedule the delivery. So our maintenance crew goes back out, or actually, I don't even think our maintenance crew went back out. I think just maybe the next day or a couple hours later, these kids text us back and they say, hey, the fridge is working now. So we said, okay, great. What happened? And they said, well, we didn't realize we had to leave our food in there for a few hours before it got cold, but we did, and now our food's cold. And you just kind of think to yourself, like, I know you're in your early 20s, but did you grow up in a house that maybe didn't have a fridge? Have you never used a fridge before?
Oh my gosh.
And so
basics.
a lot of stuff like that,
Basics.
man. I mean, we had a guest.
Like, my laundry's not getting clean. Why? I didn't throw it in the wash.
I didn't start. You get a lot of stuff like that, and it makes you lose a little bit of faith in people. Oh, we had another guy that just went berserk because there was bugs in the hot tub, and so we said, okay, send us a picture. Try to appease this guy as best we can, and sends us a picture. And I kid you not, man, I could go back and find this picture. I saved it to my phone. I mean, there's a fly, a regular size fly in the hot tub. Mind you, the hot tub is outside, in the mountains, in the middle of the woods. And we had a net on the wall. So if that does happen, you can grab the net, scoop the fly out.
There be flies.
I mean, this guy went berserk, man. I think he stayed for maybe one night, and he wanted the whole night refunded. And Airbnb ended up refunding him because that's how they used to work, is they wouldn't really give the host a chance to argue. But we had to deal with that. And then the last one that comes to mind is we had another guest
lost a night over a fly.
over a fly. Yeah, it was the dumbest thing. We had another guest that left us a 5-star review, and in the 5-star review said something like, we left food in the car. We didn't realize there was bears up here. We got to see a bear, which was really cool. But the bear smashed our window, scratched the car, and stole our food. And then the last part of the review says, but it was so cool. And then we got 5 stars. So, just dealing with all different kinds of people, man.
Good for you.
2 thumbs up. Yeah. And so we had a lot of stories like that. I mean, I could go on about just the silly stuff that happens. People not knowing how to work keypad locks and different things. But those are probably the top three
So
there.
if you're looking for the hands-off rental experience, Airbnb is probably not for you.
Probably not.
Okay, you gotta
But
have
there
some.
are ways to do it hands off.
Yeah, you got to have the right management companies and the right teams. And
Yeah.
wow,
Or a partner, or you could get a virtual assistant, or you could get someone to help you with it. But there's still a little bit of hands-on work.
just not exactly like
Hmm.
Instagram. You just do it, find an investor.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Financially free in 2 days.
I love financially free in 2 days. It's the best thing ever. Knowing what you know now, is there something that you would have told your 22, 24, 25-year-old self that would have been really helpful? Like now that you've had experience, you've had business deals, you've had career changes, you've had money, you've had expenses, you have houses, you've had, you got married. Like, is there anything that would have been really helpful for you to have known at an earlier point in your life to be like, hey, no, just make sure to navigate this well
Hmm.
in business or relationships? Or like, is there any advice that you would give the 22, 23-year-old Aaron to help navigate this business, career, or relationship process better?
Man, you asked some good questions, and haven't really thought about that a whole lot. I think one of the things I would have said was just have more confidence. Like, go
Mm,
for it. I don't think people always care about your age. I think I could have started maybe investing sooner. If I had known about mortgages, I could have gotten into that sooner.
yeah.
But I think I did lack just a lot of confidence around that and what I could do, coming out of school and not really having any experience. And I think the second thing I would really tell myself is to do everything to the best of your ability and to do it well. And it goes to that quote. It's a common quote of, how does it go? It's something along the lines of, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And it's a mantra that I repeat to myself, almost daily now. But, even the days I told you I didn't enjoy being in Montgomery, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the people that I worked with. I didn't enjoy just the schedule and just really wasn't enjoying life at that point. And really just looking for the next thing and getting, fired up about the next thing and reading and learning and, moving toward that next thing. But I think I would tell myself to go back and to do that job well and to do it with excellence. And,
Yeah.
even in the days where, I was working a job that I didn't want to work, like doing that job well
Okay.
is going to honor the Lord. And it's also going to make me a better man. It's going to make me more prepared for whatever does come next. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a regret that I have when I look back at those times. And those are some pretty hard times. Being in a
Yeah.
place where I didn't know anybody, it was a really hard culture.
Mm,
Everybody I feel like knew each other. And so I was coming in as an outsider
right.
and as one of the youngest people, fresh out of college, no experience. And so I think I spent a lot of my days just really disliking that job and just slogging through it. And that's something I'm good
Mm.
at, man, is I'm good at just like putting my blinders on, kind of putting my head down and just going and
I'm
like
just gonna do it.
just doing it, like
Yeah.
just sucking it up and getting it done, but like not doing it probably to the best of my ability. So that's probably what I would tell myself looking back.
Have you encountered anybody that has been on that precipice like you were at the fire department where you just discovered like, oh, there's more options out here. I don't even know that I was looking, but there's something out here. Like, what would you tell that person that is considering something else but doesn't even have any direction to go? Like, you tell them to just jump and throw yourself into something? Do you like, hey, just try as much stuff as possible? Like, as you have come through this process of, I had something really stable. That's a value. I
Hmm.
want stable, but I also want freedom. And so
Yeah.
there's a tension there.
Yeah.
But as someone who sits on the precipice of making decisions on whether or not they're going to pursue this idea or this possibility or this business, like, do you have any guidance to that person who hasn't yet stepped into something new, but is thinking about it?
Yeah, I think I would probably just say, just go for it, because the fire department is an awesome job. I mean, whether
Mhm.
you know what you want to do or not, especially if you work a shift where you're working for 2 days and you have 4 days off, you have so much time off. You
Yeah.
can work a pretty much a second full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was there, they had some rules about like how many hours you could work outside of, you had to sign a form every year that said, I'm not going to work more than, X hours. It was like 20 hours or something. But,
Okay.
like that wasn't my goal in life, was to,
Mm-hmm.
only work a few hours and not get to where I wanted to go. And so
Yeah.
I would tell them to go for it, or if someone is thinking about getting into the fire service but doesn't know what they want to do, again, the fire service is such a great opportunity because you can go out and you can build whatever you want on your off days,
Mm.
and even on those days where you take a shift off, now you have 10 days in a row completely off and you're
Wow, that's
free. And
right.
so you
Yeah.
have weeks off at a time. I mean, you have so much time to be able to build and try new things. I mean, you could try a new thing every year. If someone's on the precipice, they're working as a fireman, they want to get
Mm-hmm.
out of it. You can try something every year for the next couple of years until you find exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you have all the time in the world, I felt like, to be able to build it up. And I know people have families and other obligations outside
Sure.
of that. But for me as a, newly married, fireman where my wife works full time, I come home, there's not anything for me to do. Like,
Right.
you got all day.
You got the sky is the limit for you to create and
Yeah.
iterate and try new things and explore. And it's, I feel personally that there's been this, there's almost the fear of failure, that fear of trying something new and it not working,
Yeah.
or that I have to go in 1,000% and like say, screw everything else, no safety nets. I just have to
Yeah.
try. And like, it feels like there's almost like, those are the two tensions in life.
Yeah.
It's like I either don't try anything because the world is scary, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are unemployed today, and like it's hard.
Yeah.
The economy in the U.S. right now is a difficult economy, whether that be for mortgages or for rates or for just regular employment. We can agree that just is a
Yeah.
hard place right now, and yet there's never been more opportunity, in my opinion,
There's
for
so much opportunity.
creation and the ability to create big, quick, and
Yeah.
blow up your income in a good way. And like,
Yeah.
there's just never been more opportunity. But how do you resolve the two? And which camp are you going to fall in? And is there a middle way? Like, to me, it's been the question now. I mean, that's part of the reason of the podcast is like,
Mhm.
I have a very stable foundation that pays the bills and provides opportunity for myself and my wife. But I desire for more. I desire for different. I desire for exploring that process, but not blowing up my world at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to do with that tension, but
Yeah.
it's hard to step into at times.
It really is, man. And the longer this conversation goes, the more I realize just how similar we are. Because I mean, I think the same way. A lot of times it's like the fear of failure,
Yeah.
or it's the screw it, And I wrestled with that for a
Mhm.
couple of years as a fireman. Like, should I just burn the boats, quit, go all in, and now I'm stuck, and I've got to make this thing
Right.
work? Or
Right.
like I was so afraid of failing, and so I totally get that. I resonate with all of that. But yeah, I think, dude, I just think we have so much time, and I mean, if you look at the stats, I think it's cliche, but you look at the stats of like how much time people spend on social media, spend watching TV.
Right.
Dude, even for me, like how much time I spend watching TV during the week. I mean, we have so much time.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I think there's like, even if somebody wants to make that jump, but they're afraid like I was, or, they don't want to give up what they have because it's certain and they know what it is. I mean, you have nights and you got weekends.
Yep.
I mean, I just think there's so much time for opportunity. I just read a book, or I'm in the middle of reading $1 Million Weekend
Oh,
right now.
I love
If
that
you've read
book.
it, yeah. And so it's making
That's
me just
such a good book. Go out
It's
and make a
so good.
sale before you build a business.
go
Like,
out, find some customers,
Ah!
and then build it. Yeah. And so I'm going through that. I've had some time on Saturday, and just trying to be productive. It's
such
like
a good book. I love that one.
yeah. And so I'd say for anyone that wants to do that, read that book,
Yeah.
because I'm using that to try to even start another little like side business hustle of like travel hacking and helping people with that,
Yeah.
because we love traveling and we travel hack and we do all of our trips on points.
Yep.
And so that's something I was thinking maybe I could build like a little side business and make some extra income
Why
around this.
not?
But man, I think there's so many opportunities, and I don't even think someone has to go in with both feet and burn the boats to get into something. I mean, if you're making an extra $500 a month or $1,000 a month as a side hustle, you could keep that as a side hustle and you could invest that extra income. And I think that would still make a difference for a lot of people. They could do something, they could explore some options. And I love how he talks about it in that book of like, try, experiment, fail, and then just keep trying and keep going.
Just iterate again and again and again.
Yeah. So
Yeah. How have you found friendship or relationships with people, and how they changed as you have this growth mindset and this willingness to like try and experiment and put yourself out there, but then like, no, I'm moving in a direction. Are your friends of the same mindset and caliber? And if yes, awesome. If no, like how do you navigate you being who you are while having other people in your life who are like, no, you're crazy. Like, don't do that. Don't shake the boat. Just stay steady,
Yeah.
stay consistent, and then you'll be fine.
yeah, I would say I'm pretty fortunate now where most of my friends I think are pretty growth oriented.
Okay.
And that's been awesome. I think I just had to learn. I mean, especially when I was still in the fire service, what I was doing was different, right? I mean, that was a job where, still had a pension. You worked for X amount of years and you get
Right.
retirement. And so, people did ask me kind of towards the end of my time at my last apartment, aren't you worried about retirement and this and that? And no, I mean, because you don't even
Mm,
know if that's going to be there in 30 years.
right.
Anyway, but
A lot of that went away in
at the same
2007,
time,
2008.
I'm gonna build that for myself. And so I think I just had to, I feel like you just kind of know, or maybe you get better at developing boundaries and you realize like who you can talk to about certain things. And so I just realized, there's some people that, if you tell them what you're doing, they're going to shoot you down or they're going to hate on
Yeah.
you for it, or they're going to try to like, you know, discourage you from doing it. But I would say I'm very fortunate. And I joined a group, it was a couple years ago called Go Abundance, if you've heard of it.
Go Abundance.
Go
I'm
Abundance.
actually not familiar.
It was a group for, I'm not in it anymore, but I joined it for a year or two. And it was a group for, or is a group for entrepreneurs and investors and business people. And so I made some really good friends through
Cool.
that group that I'm still friends with, even though I'm not a part of it anymore
Yeah.
here in Nashville. And so that's been super helpful to get some of those, friends that are also doing big things, and building
Right.
big companies and doing fun stuff.
That's so cool, man.
So
Bring us into final thoughts of like where you are going. What does the future hold? The 5 year, 10 year, 20 year. Like where is Aaron going in this business? And at the end of that, give me your plug. Like where can people find you? How can they connect with you if you want to buy a home, invest in a home, have a conversation about Airbnb investing and the craziness that could be? Like where do people find you? So like future, where are you going, and how do people get connected with you?
yeah, so I think I'm going and just moving towards that direction of owning more real estate,
Okay.
building our portfolio. I don't really know exactly what that looks like. I think people talk about having this super clear vision, and like I have a vision, but it's not always super clear. I mean, it's owning enough assets that we're making that horizontal income that I talked about.
Yeah.
But I do foresee myself, starting, growing, or buying into a portfolio of businesses and owning and operating and building a team around running those businesses while we're doing our investing. So
That's so much fun.
that's where I want to go, man. I want to spend a ton of time with my wife, and if we have a family, ton of
Mhm.
time with my family, and be able to travel. Spend a month in Europe, spend a summer in Europe.
Where's the next travel location?
Dude, we're going to Budapest and Vienna over Thanksgiving,
Heck yeah.
and we're going to the Christmas markets.
Oh my
So
gosh, that's gonna be
it'll
so
be so if
awesome.
it's like leave Sunday, get there Monday, come back, stay Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is Thanksgiving, and then come back Friday. So it'll be pretty quick, but yeah, we're
Worth
so
it.
stoked. Yeah, it's
Worth
gonna be
it.
awesome.
Oh my gosh, I love Vienna.
Oh man, I'll have to get your thoughts and
Okay.
your Rex. I know it's a quick trip, but so that's our next trip. And then yeah, people can find me on Instagram at Aaron Sheets. First name is Aaron, and then you can put my last name, I guess, in the show notes. But
Yep.
it's Sheets, and it's Sheats. I'm on Instagram. You can put my cell phone number, maybe my email in there too.
For sure.
And yeah, reach out. Would love to talk with anyone that is interested in investing or real estate or getting a mortgage or just wants to talk business, hang out, grab coffee. Love coffee. So
If you're in the
love to connect.
Nashville area and you want advice or experience or exposure to someone who just loves the market of homes and business, and like Aaron's your man. And I know even for some recent family that moved to Tennessee, like you were able to put together a super complicated deal of multi-country income chaos and all these other things, but he was able to put it together. So as a resource of a man who can actually bring a deal together, I mean, I haven't asked about all your deals, but I haven't had personally an experience a deal that you couldn't find a way to put together. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
if that's what you're interested in, Aaron is your man.
Love it. Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today, and thanks for sharing your story of growth. And it actually surprised me a little bit. I didn't
Okay.
realize your start wasn't in some sort of real estate or even the loan officer stuff. Or
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was even a prior career, and that to me is just a testament to anybody can do business.
Mhm.
Anybody can have a beginning that looks like this or looks like that, and it really comes down to what do you want,
Yeah.
what can you dream, and what have you done to get there. Like small steps create huge outcomes. Like you don't have to go for broke day
Yeah.
one, and that's what my experience of your story has been, is that you've done these small right things towards the goals that you wanted, and you've had to make lots of pivots, but it's been an exciting journey with some very fruitful outcomes.
Yeah, it's been an adventure for sure.
Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, man. This has been great.
It's been
Appreciate
awesome.
it.